Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's presentation. I'm excited to talk about how to get over someone. As you can see, the subtitle is Navigating Heartbreak in the Age of Viral Advice and Social Media Wisdom. Today, we'll explore practical tips, mental strategies, and how to avoid falling into common pitfalls when healing from a breakup. So, let's get started and discover how to move forward with confidence and clarity. Let's talk about the problem with viral relationship advice. In today's world, we're constantly bombarded with opinions and quick takes, sometimes just 15 seconds, that try to tell us how to handle heartbreak. But here's the thing. The real danger isn't heartbreak itself, but the advice we consume about it. The internet is full of catchy slogans that seem wise, but can actually oversimplify the complexity of human emotions and connection. One of the most popular phrases you'll see is, "If they wanted to, they would." At first, it might sound empowering. It's like a reminder to value ourselves, to stop chasing someone who's not reciprocating, or to walk away from one-sided love. And sure, there's some truth to that. But the problem is, when we treat this phrase as a strict rule, it can turn genuine connection into a simple game of who cares more. This leaves no room for nuance, misunderstanding, or growth. It's easy to fall into the trap of thinking everything is black and white, but human relationships are rarely that simple. That's what I want to explore today, how this mindset can be harmful and what a healthier, more grounded approach to healing and moving on actually looks like. Let's talk about the illusion of easy wisdom in modern advice. Social media has really changed how we consume guidance. It's almost like fast food, quick, catchy, and emotionally satisfying. When we see something that hits us emotionally, we tend to repost it without really questioning if it's true or applicable. For example, when millions agree with a quote like, "If they wanted to, they would," it starts to feel like a universal truth. But the reality is, relationship dynamics are never that simple or one-size-fits-all. They are deeply influenced by context, personal history, communication styles, and emotional maturity. This kind of simplistic advice often plays on our insecurities. It encourages us to jump to worst-case scenarios without engaging in honest, open dialogue. And the result? We end up sabotaging our own emotional well-being, mistaking this for self-respect. So, it's important to remember that real relationship understanding requires nuance, not just quick, catchy slogans. Let's take a closer look at the "if they wanted to, they would" trap. At first glance, it might seem empowering, like encouraging personal responsibility in relationships. But in practice, it can actually be quite toxic. Picture this, you might say, "It would make me happier if you called me more. We don't talk much when we're apart, and it feels like I'm always the one reaching out." Now, if your partner responds with, "Okay, I'll do that," the typical internet reaction might be, "See, they're only doing it because you asked. If they really wanted to, they already would have." But here, the problem, this kind of thinking shuts down communication before it even starts. It assumes emotional neglect instead of trying to understand where misunderstandings might be. It labels willingness to improve as insincerity, which isn't fair or productive. People express care differently. Some may not be naturally expressive, or they might not realize how much those small gestures mean to us. Love, too, looks different for everyone. Not everyone has learned what love looks like from their past experiences or their environment. And when we fall into this trap, empathy gets lost. Instead of having a genuine conversation, we jump to judgment. Ironically, that's how we end up pushing away the connection we're actually craving. Recognizing this can help us foster better understanding and more meaningful communication. Let's talk about the subjective nature of the bare minimum. Another phrase that often fuels unrealistic expectations is, "You shouldn't have to ask for the bare minimum." But what exactly is the bare minimum? Well, it really varies from person to person. For some, it might be daily texts and phone calls to feel connected. For others, it could be loyalty, giving space, or quiet companionship that matters most. Respect, affection, and communication are experienced differently depending on your emotional blueprint, which is often shaped by childhood experiences and attachment styles. So, when your partner doesn't automatically meet your version of the bare minimum, it doesn't necessarily mean they don't care. It might simply mean they love differently, or perhaps they haven't been taught how to love in a way that matches your expectations. The mature approach here is to communicate your needs clearly, rather than judge their capacity to meet them. Love isn't about mind reading or guessing games, it's about understanding each other and adapting. Expecting your partner to read your mind isn't realistic. It's an idealized fantasy that can lead to frustration. Instead, open up a dialogue, share your needs, and listen to theirs. That's how genuine connection and understanding are built. Let's talk about the romantic delusion of social media. It's really shaped how we perceive relationships these days. You see these videos of perfect couples, giving flowers, cooking dinner, staying calm even during arguments. And in the comments, people are often saying things like, "May this type of love find me," or "If they wanted to, they would." It's almost as if these clips set an impossible standard. What you don't see are the private struggles, those nights of doubt, heated conversations, and painful lessons that actually teach us how to love better. But social media's algorithms tend to reward us for sharing highlights, not honesty. That's a key point. What we see is curated, polished, and often not the full story. This creates a sort of conditioning where we start to mistake conflict for incompatibility or effort for desperation. We might think that if things aren't perfect, they're doomed. But real love isn't always pretty or aesthetic. It's built in the gray zones, those moments between comfort and confrontation, patience and misunderstanding. And here's an important reminder. When you're trying to get over someone, remember, you're not comparing your actual breakup to reality. You're comparing it to this filtered illusion that's social media presence, and that's a distorted view of love and relationships. Healing is really about cultivating your own inner space, much like building a beautiful garden. There's a timeless piece of advice I love. If you spend your time chasing butterflies, they'll fly away. But if you build a beautiful garden, the butterflies will come. This metaphor captures the essence of healing, because instead of constantly seeking closure or validation from someone who's left, you shift that energy inward. When you focus on your own growth, something truly changes. You stop depending on others for emotional nourishment and instead become the source yourself. So how do we do that? First, by picking up hobbies, things that bring us joy and fulfillment. Engaging in activities that make us feel alive helps us reconnect with ourselves. Second, learning new skills pushes us beyond our comfort zones and expands our capabilities, giving us a sense of progress. Third, expressing creatively, whether through art, writing, music, or movement, allows us to channel our emotions in a healthy, healing way. And finally, reconnecting with life outside of romantic relationships, building new friendships and experiences, fosters a sense of wholeness. When you turn inward in this way, heartbreak transforms into self-discovery. And here's the interesting part. Ironically, that's often when love comes back into your life. Not because you chased it or forced it, but because you became more magnetic through your own healing process. So remember, building your garden creates a space where love can naturally bloom again. When it comes to advice, it's important to think before you take it. Not all advice is inherently bad, and some controversial phrases, like, "If they wanted to, they would," can actually serve as useful reminders, especially when it comes to recognizing emotional neglect. But the real key here is critical thinking. Before you adopt any new belief or idea, ask yourself a few questions. First, does this really apply to my situation? Or am I just jumping on a trend because it's popular? It's important to stay grounded in your own reality. Next, consider whether what you're doing is truly protecting your peace. Or could it be a way of avoiding vulnerability? Sometimes we cling to certain beliefs or behaviors because they feel safer, even if they're not helping us grow. And finally, ask yourself if you're thinking critically or just reacting emotionally. Healing after heartbreak isn't about suppressing feelings or deleting emotions. It's about learning how to interpret those feelings with wisdom and clarity. When we approach emotional healing with a mindful perspective, we're more likely to move forward in a healthy way. So, always remember, question, reflect, and think critically before accepting advice. Let's talk about the journey of outgrowing. The truth is, getting over someone isn't about simply forgetting them. It's more about outgrowing the version of yourself that depended on that person for your sense of meaning and identity. Sometimes we hold on to the past because it's familiar, but true growth happens when we evolve beyond that. Now, social media often pushes us to move on quickly, to act like we've already healed, or to show that we've leveled up. But the reality is, authentic healing is quiet, it's slow, and it's deeply personal. There's no one-size-fits-all timeline, and that's okay. Outgrowing someone is a process that involves patience, reflection, and compassion for yourself. Remember, this journey is about becoming the best version of yourself, not rushing through the pain or trying to prove anything to anyone. So, as we wrap up, I want to leave you with a final thought. Take the time to really think for yourself. Don't just accept advice at face value. Question the advice that seems too easy or too good to be true. Remember, the most powerful love story you'll ever live is the one you build within yourself. That's where true strength and fulfillment begin. Now, what should you keep in mind? Healing is a deeply personal journey. It's different for everyone. There's no one-size-fits-all approach, and that's okay. Real love isn't about avoiding the gray areas. It's about navigating them and understanding that these complexities are where growth happens. Communication is vital, more than assumptions or guesses. Open, honest dialogue can bridge gaps that otherwise might seem insurmountable. And never forget, your growth is your greatest power. When you focus on developing yourself, you become more resilient, more compassionate, and more capable of love, both giving and receiving. Looking ahead, I want you to understand that getting over someone isn't about shutting yourself off or becoming cold. It's about becoming whole within yourself. It's about recognizing that the love you're searching for externally must first be cultivated internally. That's where true healing begins. When you nurture that inner love, everything else falls into place.